Welcome to the Fifth Gait Podcast. We have thrown around the idea of a podcast for years, but we finally made it happen as we were stuck together in the truck on a 10-hour road trip home from a horse show. Our passion is the Icelandic horse and all aspects of the worldwide community that surrounds this breed. Here, we come together as equestrian professionals to share our hardest lessons, our biggest wins, and our future hopes for Icelandic horsemanship. Our conversations aim to educate, inspire, and grow all people like us who love Icelandic horses, from enthusiasts and amateurs to trainers, competitors, and field specialists.
Well, we're coming off of a whole 3-day clinic with Patrick Sullivan here. We're missing his wife, Avery Sullivan.
For good reason.
For good reasons. Two small, wonderful good reasons.
Yeah.
So Patrick Sullivan is a Liberty trainer and brideless rider, perhaps most well known for riding brideless from California to Kentucky on his mare Gamilah. And what was the other horse's name?
Hal.
So Hal and Gamilah
Yes.
did that journey with you. But Patrick has also gained a lot of recognition training horses from all sorts of different backgrounds, rescue horses, and also some Icelandic horses with us. Very excited to have you on the podcast, and particularly to just explore horsemanship in general, because we always say good horsemanship is universal.
Yes.
So it's all something that applies when it comes to the principles.
Yeah.
Even if some of the equitation or the details are a little different, the styles are a little different.
The goal is maybe different, but yeah,
Correct.
The
principles are the same.
principles are shared. We have a series of questions we're going to ask you. So we start with personal story stuff. And the first question that I wanted to ask you is, if you met someone, say in an elevator, like your elevator pitch, and they were to ask you what you do for a living, how would you answer that in a couple of minutes?
Well, first off, I want to say I respect you both. That's why I'm sitting here. What you do with your horses are amazing. And I genuinely think that Icelandics are some of the coolest horses in the whole planet.
We do too. But
As I told you, I convinced my aunt to get one recently. And I just think they're such an amazing animal, not only through their mind, but their movement. And I just think a lot of people aren't familiar with it, especially in the non-gated community. And I try to promote Icelandics everywhere that I go. So just know I'm not like necessarily a gated or Icelandic guy, but I love them. And but to answer your question, if I were to answer someone that doesn't know anything about horses, that doesn't know anything about Liberty in an elevator, I put it pretty simply like this: I view myself as like a horse educator, horse therapist, and a people educator and therapist. And when I break it down through Liberty, is we want to give the horses as much freedom as that we can within the boundaries that they must learn, because these horses aren't wild horses anymore; they're domesticated, and so they have to learn how to live with people and learn through people's boundaries. So they have their own rules, they have their own regulations, they have their own laws that we must teach them, but we try to give them the most freedom in those boundaries that we can. And Liberty gives them that option to think for themselves instead of just being told everything every day.
I love that.
me too.
Yeah, sometimes I always say when we close the doors to the arena that as much as I love liberty and freedom, I don't want to do liberty in the neighborhood.
Correct. Exactly right. Because who knows where they end up.
This is true. Yeah. So building on what liberty is, or maybe what it is to you, we'd like to ask the question, what is your personal why when it comes to horsemanship and liberty, or maybe even how you ended up in liberty? Like, did you always pursue liberty horsemanship, or how did this evolve into your career?
Yeah, so I got started in horses in 2015, which is 10 years ago. I was a college soccer coach before. I got my MBA, and then I moved back home, and with my mom, and my mom had moved out to the country because she was able to afford horses, and she'd always wanted horses. But long story short, I didn't have any knowledge or interest in horses at all, and I saw this gentleman named Ryan Rose play Liberty with his horse one time, and I was like, why doesn't everyone do that? Because that looks way cooler than all this other stuff I see. And I didn't really know anything about anything, but I just thought it looked amazing. I thought you able to a horse just follow you naturally just looked so cool. And I was like, that's the journey I want to go on. And I ended up finding a real job, quote unquote real job. And 2 years later, I was like, I'm gonna quit my job and I want to focus on horses full time. And my first job was horse rescue. And so I got to learn not to work with so many different types of horses that it wasn't so much about their body, but first getting their mind. And to me, that's what liberty is. So my why is easy is that I want to see how far we can take horsemanship through what the horses are trying to teach us. And that's what I strive for every day is that to try to learn to say, yes, we have a great foundation from the past, but it's like with everything in life, just because we learn it from the past doesn't mean that we can't take it a step forward. Because I think the old horsemen and women that set a foundation hoped that we can continue to move horsemanship forward. And I think that's what liberty is it's the foundation for all disciplines. It's not a replacement for any because the horses already know it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that just idea that liberty is really just tapping into what the horses are already offering us and
Yes.
just shaping it.
Yes.
And I mean, we've seen that in our horses too, just coming from a completely different discipline, how quickly they take to it. And it's because it is innately what they already are.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and wild too. I'm always stunned by the fact that Liberty horses remember. You cannot do
Yeah.
Liberty with your Liberty horses for like 3 months, pull them out of the field, go into a Liberty session, and they're pretty much right where you left them,
Yes.
which is wild. That's not true of a lot of other training.
Hmm.
And that also speaks to how innate it is.
Correct.
It's that
Yeah.
fundamental connection. Would you share with us a moment in your career that you're most proud of and
Hmm.
also a moment that you found particularly humbling? We like to hear about
Yes.
both on this podcast because as horse people, we have a lot of both.
We have.
Yes. Well, the cool thing is y'all have been there, and I would say I have more humbling experiences, in my opinion, than like
Yeah.
experiences that will, to highlight what we did. But I'll start with a humbling one, and it's right here in the heart of Kentucky. So I had Gamilah for her first ever Liberty demo in front of this big Arabian show. I was like, I'm gonna show you guys what Liberty is about, because like they have this class in the Arabian world is where they let their horse loose and they just chase him around for a couple minutes and they view their movement. And I was like, that's not Liberty. What is that? And then I took Gammy in there and she just ran around like all the other horses for 5 minutes. I got her back. I took the halter on, put the halter on. I walked out of the arena. I was like, that was awful. I was like, what is it that I can do to help make it better? But it was like, it's very humbling because I went in there saying I was going to show these people what Liberty was about. And Gammy says, well, you can't show what Liberty's about until you show me what it's about. And that kind of started the whole journey. And, picking just one thing is very difficult. But I think the biggest accomplishment I can say that I've ever had with horses is seeing the students that we have and that we help develop accomplish their goals. Because it's funny, it's like I've done some things, cool things with horses, but when I see the students go in there and do want to put on a demo and they see their happy faces, that actually makes me more happy than I do just going in and doing a demo myself. Because if I can sit up here and preach and say a lot of different things, but if they go out and do it, the people that are not professionals in this and they can do it themselves, that's what makes me the happiest. And again, it's like, I'm not just saying that, I genuinely believe it. It's if something happened and I couldn't do Liberty anymore, as long as I could teach, I would still do this. So,
Mm.
mm,
Yeah, and I think I can say the same.
yeah.
Just of course, it's great when I set a goal and I
Hmm.
accomplish it with my horses, but it is so much more rewarding to see my student or my client achieve the goal that they've been working so hard for. And I think it's because like not only are you have just as much time invested as they do, but you also watch
Yes.
them struggle through it for so long.
And when they're doing it, you watch and your heart races more than it's ever raced when you're performing.
Yes.
It's yes, way worse. Yeah, agreed. Okay, so I know that there have been many important horses in your career,
Hmm.
but when you think of who is the most important horse in your career, who's the first that comes to your mind?
So everyone would think Gammy was because she was the one that put me on the map, but really it was the horse before her, the horse that got me into horses, which I call her my angel. She's the Amira. I actually named my daughter. She has Amira as her middle name because of the horse, and she was just she changed my life because she was so sensitive and she was so sweet. And she was like my mother that I would do everything wrong. And every day she would come back and say, let's try again. Let's try again, son. Let's try again. And I would not be here if there's any other horse that got with first. If there's any other horse other than her, I wouldn't be sitting here today because she was just so kind and so sweet, but she was just so worried about things. But every day she would let me halter her. Every day she would let me make a million mistakes, and she would come back and just love me and say, "It's okay. You know, you might be a little silly, you might be kind of stupid from time to time, but I love you and I know you're trying and I see your heart." And without her, like I said, I wouldn't be here. And she's just she's no longer with us, but she's someone that I think is my angel, and was brought here to say, hey, this you can make a living out of this. You can help change lives through this. So I would say she was one.
In Icelandic horsemanship, we really value willing horses. We
Yes.
talk a lot about that. Like that's one of the most valued character traits in Iceland. And it sounds like she was a truly willing horse.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the first things I noticed about Icelandics. I'm gonna let you guys tell me, but we worked together. I mean, 5, 6 years ago over at
Yeah.
Dan James's, and the things that you could do with Icelandic horses that you brought. Maybe it was just like that group, but we could do things the first day at Liberty that almost like 95% of the other horses that we worked with took 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sessions. So again, I'm not an expert in Icelandic world, but that was my game changer. And you guys can tell me if that's true or not. But it's like I saw how quickly they picked up the Liberty, and I was like, holy smokes, if they're all like this, why aren't they doing this more? You know?
We agree.
So, but it's like something that sticks into my head. And Lisa's horse today was one of the first horses I worked with, and I was like, this guy is just so cool.
And
And
he is a very willing horse.
Yeah,
yes,
he is.
Like
hmm
that is his tendency.
yes,
But it is something that we value, and I think those horses are so precious
hmm
because they give people those opportunities to trial
Yeah.
and error our way to
Yeah.
where we are today.
Yeah.
correct.
We're gonna shift a little bit into training talk now.
That's your favorite talk.
That's one of my favorite talks. Although my favorite category of these questions is the future of horsemanship because I think that's always where the biggest questions lie. But with training, could you, and we just did
Just
this a
did this.
bit, so this might be repetition in of sorts, but could you compare and contrast the Icelandic horse with the more typical horses you work with? A lot of people listening to this podcast are Icelandic horse
Y-
enthusiasts.
Yes.
So I think they're curious kind of about the temperament and
Yeah.
how they're different and also how they're the same.
hmm I think it might. I'm not just saying this, but and the reason I push my aunt to the Icelandic horse is because when I look at like all the different breeds, and I've worked with probably most of the breeds that I can think of. Sure, I'm sure there's some that I have not, but a lot. The Icelandic horse is very consistent
Mm,
in who they are. Right? Because a lot of the other breeds, yes, we have our varieties even in the Icelandic horse world, but I know that the Icelandic breeders, in my opinion, focus on the mind a lot. Yeah, the body's important and they're different gaits, which I'm like, not an expert in. But I think of Icelandics as very consistent. When I get in there with Icelandic, I'm like, there's certain qualities that I think that a lot of them are forward thinking horses. A lot of them are thinkers, meaning that they want to think before they react. And they're like, a lot of them are very good minded. Obviously, you have your ranges just like every other breed. And I would say that's what I view as Icelandic horses. That's how my is like. And then when I look at other breeds, obviously there's on that wide spectrum of what you see, which is totally fine. But I feel like in a lot of breeds, and not all breeds, the temperament is one of the later things people focus on,
mm,
and they focus more on the physical things. And again, I'm not a gated person at all,
yeah.
but I'm learning and I'm developing. And when I look at just breeds as general, I think the number one thing that we should focus on is the mindset and the temperament.
Yes.
And again, there's some breeds that do a really good job. And like I was first breed that I was ever introduced to was Arabians.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but a lot of in the Arabian community, one of the last things that people focus on is the temperament and the mind and the relaxation and the comfort. Like they have connection and they have spirit and but it's like focusing on that mind and how they interpret with people is so important and how they think through things.
Mm.
So if I were to say a big difference of it is again, it's one breed compared to all the others, which is very, very difficult to say. But again, the thing that draws me the most still to this day as I work and when I think so positively about it, the Icelandic breed has a very consistent tendency that a lot of breeds do not. And again, I might be wrong, but for what I've seen, I've been blessed to see a lot through you guys, but I've also been in some of my other experiences.
We've also taken a lot of
Yes.
our most difficult horses to use. So ironically, you have not necessarily always seen the best of our horses because we often come to you with the ones that need more help emotionally.
Yes.
But
And what,
still the most difficult
Yes,
is more consistent, maybe.
maybe then.
and when no offense, but like when I look at your difficult horses,
Yeah.
and then I look at some of the other things that I see on the day to day, I don't view it as the same
The same kind of difficult.
the same level.
Like this one's crazy, and you're like, ah,
Yeah, so it's like it's not, and I think that goes to the standard in which you set.
yeah.
And again, I don't know the history. You guys explained a little bit to me, but it's like I think that all breeds need to look more into what Icelandics are doing for what they're doing, not because of the movement. You guys have your own standards, but for the temperament. And I tell everyone that I don't care what the horse even moves like until I know what their mind is like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everywhere I go, I promote that number one
Mhm.
is if a horse has a good mind, they're going to have a good life usually. If the horse does not,
Yes.
then we're going to the training doesn't matter after that because it's going to take 1,000 times longer to train a horse that's not good
struggling.
minded.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that makes me excited for the future horsemanship
Oh,
questions. Just because we touched on that a little bit, just
Mhm.
about breeding decisions now to set up the horses for like a better future. Is like
Yes.
we should be considering that breeding is not only for our own personal goals, but also for like horse welfare.
Yes.
Yeah,
future generations.
for future generations. Yeah. Um. So I'm gonna skip one question
problem.
and just jump straight to this one because I'm excited to hear your answer. So we know, and many of your followers know, that your faith is a big part of your brand.
Hmm.
How would you say that influences the way that you run your business?
That's a really good question. And I'm one of those people that live in my faith and I talk about my faith, but I don't push my faith.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
And I try to run the same thing about liberty because I'm passionate about it. Liberty is all that I do. It's all that I talk about. I'm a liberty pusher, but I don't overbearing it on people. I respect their views, just like I respect so many other religions. I got friends, some of my best friends are Muslim,
Mhm.
atheist,
Mhm.
Buddhist, that I respect them for them. I have some of the best friends in this horse industry that do the exact opposite of that I do. They use as much tools as they can to get the shape and what they and I can't judge them in that way because they are doing the best that they can,
Yeah.
and they're helping the horse that they how they know how to do it.
Mhm.
And I can learn some from them, and then I hope that maybe they can learn from me. But if I go into environments and say, I live in my faith, you need to believe the way I believe, then it instantly shuts people off. And the same with liberty. If I go in and say, like I did that first show, hey, you guys want to see liberty? I'll show you how it completely turns people off because people don't want to hear that. But if I go and show them how I live in my life, and I'm not perfect in any means, but if I do my best and they say, okay, well, this guy lives this certain way, maybe I want to learn more.
Yeah.
And that's how I go about my business is
Yeah.
if I keep promoting liberty the way that we're trying to do and say that, hey, look, we're just as imperfect as you guys,
Yeah.
then maybe people will want to learn more.
Yeah.
And I think the second thing is I try to surround myself with good people like you guys. I'm sad my wife isn't here, Avery, because this is the one trip that she likes to come on the most. And this is the most disappointing trip that she doesn't get to go on just because the culture that you guys set around here. And we try to surround ourselves with people that think like-minded, but also challenge each other too. So some of my favorite conversations are later at night over dinner
Yes.
with you guys learning about how we all can do things, and I think that challenges and pushes each other.
Yeah. Would you, building on that question, would you say that it has influenced your approach to horsemanship, your faith? Like, do you see a difference in your approach to horsemanship within your faith versus maybe people that don't share the same values?
You know, my I don't think it makes that big a difference in terms of my faith makes me better. I think that the faith helps my core values,
Yeah.
and then my core values help
Yeah.
that.
Help that.
Where if some people have faith in something else, but their core values are similar into how they treat their horse, then I think that really helps. And again, it's hard for me to say because as a man of faith, it's like I want to say that the faith has everything to do with the horsemanship. I think it has a part of who I am as a core values, but it doesn't, and it shapes how I go about and treat these animals, but and the people that I deal with. But I wouldn't go as far to say as that's the only reason why,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's hard for me to say because it's almost counterintuitive because a lot of what you learn is through your faith.
Yeah.
But I think it's the core values mostly that I learn. But I think there's people that don't have the same faith and share the same faith that treat the animals and still treat the animals the same, and we believe in different ideas of it, but we're still trying to do our best
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
It's actually getting back to shared principles and values.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We might all be coming from different angles, but we can still have the same principles,
Correct.
land on the same
Mm.
principles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've worked with many Icelandic horse professionals, whether you've known it or not, in your clinics, because we have all been showing up and you've been coming here for years now. Uh, what do you see as our biggest weakness as Icelandic horse
Yeah.
trainers? The thing that we're maybe lacking in our
Don't hold
industry,
back.
Yeah.
don't hold back,
Yeah.
that our industry needs to improve on. And then also strengths. But one of the things on this podcast, we love discussing the things that we want to
Yeah.
change and want to improve on. So how has your impression been of Icelandic horsemanship and Icelandic trainers?
Yeah. I'll be real with you. I'll be very 100% honest. And we want to start with weakness or you want to do the strength? Which one you want first?
Maybe bad first.
Yeah, first.
Yeah. We end on a good note, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And again, it's as a whole. It's not as just like horses as a whole.
Mm.
I think that the Icelandic horsemanship is still very traditional in which how they teach, right? Because they have a very strong history in how you go about.
Mm.
You have your school in Iceland that you learn from. That's your core value, and it's very traditional. And I think that tradition is great.
Mm.
But I also think sometimes in tradition there has to be some kind of opening to expand, which obviously y'all are doing because of the Liberty work that you're doing. I don't know. I've
Yeah.
attended the school, but I don't know if Liberty is a part of that
No,
school,
not yet.
right?
Mm.
So, but I think if I look at just the whole of the Icelandic, and it's not just Icelandic, but if we're talking just about the Icelandic breed, it's very traditional because it has a strong sense of history and it has a strong sense of culture, and that culture is the foundation for the breed,
Mm.
which brings in the mind and why the horses are so good. But to me, it's like there has to be the balance, and why I think Liberty is so good
Mm.
for the Icelandic trainers is because it makes you think in different ways. It's like we were working with your horse today, and you were like, "I want you to ride him for a few minutes to see what I would say." And I have a very opposite idea of tradition because don't have tradition in my background. This is all learning,
Yeah.
and I look at things differently. Like, how am I going to help this horse get softer and looser instead of getting him tighter and more in a frame? And I think that's probably the area that I see the biggest growth
Yeah.
potential. But I mean, I say that, but you guys are doing brideless and Liberty and great demos and stuff. But I think to answer that question, I think that would probably be the number one thing that I saw. And again, to go back to the strength, I think the biggest strength that I see is the community that you guys have with each other. I don't know if I have ever seen a group of professionals that are so like-minded, that are so fun to be around, that share their ideas, that build a culture with one another, that actually support each other. Obviously, you have your own drama in your own industry, like we all do,
Yeah.
but everyone I've met in the Icelandic community has a very strong culture about who they are as people. They don't take their life that seriously with their horses. They have fun, they smile, they learn how to like enjoy it. And I think it's the culture behind the people. To me, that's my favorite strength of the Icelandic.
Mm.
It's like if I come back, I want to come back part of the Icelandic community because of that culture,
Mm.
where not all cultures in the horse world
Mm.
view it that way. It's more of a serious thing where I think, yes, you take what you do very seriously, but I think how you treat each other and a lot of times how you treat your horses is very warming to me. And it shows in your amazing breed. So,
I have to share really quickly with Mackenzie because I'm going to share with her at
yeah.
some point. And I think it'd be fun for listeners to hear this. So Patrick rode Vaskur, who's
Today.
my competition stallion. And Vaskur is a horse that those of us in the Icelandic horse community would find very, very lazy. Just riding him, is very frustrating for a person that loves forward willing horses.
Yeah.
And Patrick really saw in him a tightness and actually a
Like a
tension.
resistance almost.
Just a tension, a holding, and that was having that conversation around that was a good example of just how my perspective, my lens was just a very different one. And definitely comes from our culture of valuing forward horses and kind of hating on the ones that are lacking that willing spirit
Yes.
and not viewing that really from a negative light as opposed to an empathetic light.
Yeah. Well, I do think that looking at it more as a tightness and attention actually puts more responsibility on us,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
it takes the blame off of the horse.
Yes.
Yeah.
As
That's
opposed to
really, yeah.
blaming it on a character
That's
trait.
really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great example of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so going back to your work with rescue horses, since that's where you started
Yes.
and what you still do a lot of.
Yes.
Yeah. So since you do that often, you are working with horses with a troubled past and have had traumatic events in their past. What are some important principles for people to keep in mind when it comes to working with horses with a history of trauma?
Mhm. I I said it a lot at this clinic, and there's one rule that sticks out to me more than anything. I came from a childhood of trauma, and I don't want people to view me or treat me as that person. Yes, I came from trauma, but don't treat me like I came from that trauma. I want you to treat me as I stand today. And so many times when I deal with people with rescue, they're like, oh, they went through this, they went through that, they had this experience, they guess what they went through. And honestly, I do not care. I don't care what they went through. I care emotionally, but mentally, I don't care because it doesn't matter today. It matters how I help them mentally move forward from the trauma, right? It's like whether they went through this or that or they didn't, you don't have to be a rescue to go through trauma. You don't have to go through abuse to go through trauma. We all go through trauma, right? But it's the thing I want people to get away from is the stereotype of we have to baby these horses that say that went through certain experiences, just like we have to baby people and feel sorry for people that went through trauma. No, how you help those people is treat them just like someone else. And yes, you're gonna have to make slight adjustments in the way that we do it, but don't go about it like walking on eggshells. No, we're gonna speak the same language. I might help you a little bit slower, but we're still gonna do this together. And I think that's the number one misconception that I deal with people that talk about rescue horses is that they bring up the rescue and their trauma more times than ever, and they make excuses for them because of what they went through. I understand what they went through, but I try not to make excuses for them because they still have the hope to grow into something that is extraordinarily better than any other horse. And if you take a lot of the horses that we've been through our program and you just take them out to the world, no one will ever know that they're a rescue. They'll think that's one of the most talented horses I've ever seen. And it doesn't matter where they went through. And a lot of them went through the most challenging things ever. So if you're listening and you have a rescue or you have a horse, I'm sure there's horses in Icelandic breed that have been through trauma.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate and respect where they've been, but don't live in there.
Yeah.
Live in today, live into where we're gonna go, and the horses are gonna respond to it.
I don't know where I'm going with this, but I just combined or just kind of put these thoughts together. I think this is really consistent with how you talk about you're not attached to tradition. It's
Yeah.
like that you don't get attached to a narrative and then try to keep the horse or keep the training within that narrative. But it really also is consistent with how you say it's freedom within boundaries
Mm,
of just how you stay at core principles and you work very freely and creatively
yeah.
out of those principles.
Mhm.
And it's just what you're saying is consistent with everything you've been saying. Which even though they don't on paper have anything to do with each other. It was just
Yes.
kind of neat. Yeah.
Thank you.
I love that.
Yeah.
Can I ask y'all one question?
Yeah.
Sure.
It's a conversation here on the podcast, right? What do you think? Because I don't know if you have other Liberty people on here,
No.
right?
No.
Okay,
No.
but how about because you're asking me a good question, I wanna ask you a question that's really important. What do you think that the weakness is and the discipline that I love, and what do you think the strength is? And I know I didn't prepare you for such question, but there is in order to improve what we do, you have to focus on your weakness and not your strength. And if we have to come back to this,
Mhm.
let me know, but there is a weakness at Liberty. And I've tried to every day challenge and bring those weaknesses up. But what is the weakness that you see from a more traditional background? Because there's going to be most people in horses come from a traditional background. What is it that you see that's the weakness, and what do you see as a strength?
I have one that popped into my mind.
Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Let's hear yours first.
This is just a very like impulse hot take, and this might be my tradition now that I think about it, but so bear with me.
You can say it.
So the thing that I think is most challenging about liberty is that, especially done well, and especially in early sessions when horses are doing, say, their first session totally at liberty, there's a lot of feel and instinct, especially with how energy is increased and then decreased, and how your energy guides the horse. I think liberty as a horsemanship discipline, its biggest weakness is that the average person is so disconnected from their own body that that is actually really, really hard.
Yeah.
Like it's just insanely difficult for people to do well, right? And I actually think that you're phenomenal at helping people find that. But that is something a lot of our traditions, right? And this might actually be rooted in Icelandic horsemanship's weakness, is that when I teach or I'm working on Icelandic horsemanship, I have a lot of structure. And so I know I can take someone that is entirely disconnected from their bodies, really struggling in every aspect of who they are, and I can put them in the arena with the horse and teach them very structured methods within which they can communicate and not necessarily do really, really well, but they can function. I don't think that you can truly step into a liberty relationship without facing your own energy issues and like being embodied.
Disconnection,
And so I think it's like just like so many things, it's liberty's works best strength, right? It's what makes it so incredible for people and for horses.
Yeah.
Because it makes, when it clicks, it makes the experience for people and horses that much better.
Yeah.
However, I think that is a big ask of people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
It's something that's hard for them.
Awesome.
I think I was thinking the same thing, just much less eloquently. But it's true, because you see, when you are, especially those early sessions, you're working through those early sessions like correctly, and the feel and the timing is good, then the horse already knows it more or less. You start to realize that. But if you are a person that just doesn't have that connection to their horse, that doesn't have that, just that
Feel for
feel
themselves.
for their own energy and their horse's energy, that is a huge learning curve. And so I think what framework offers is, it actually just offers,
You can bypass that a little bit.
just for like teachable ways, I guess. I wouldn't say more teachable, but it's just giving more tangible ways and more like mechanical ways to achieve certain results.
And I think that you can validly question how true that is, because I think that's oftentimes a limiting factor in people's horsemanship ultimately.
Absolutely.
Like you can structure their every single learning moment, but there's a point in time where that lack of feel of their own energy and the horse's energy is going to catch up. But it is more comfortable as a teacher. I mentioned to Patrick last night that the thing that I love about watching Avery and him teach is that they're much more calm about students making mistakes than I am. And I think that's that Icelandic structure, like you learn to teach and you learn to structure and you learn to keep everybody within their little box doing what they're supposed to be doing. And you teach a liberty session, you're like, there are 20 things going wrong and I have no way of controlling the situation, right? I don't know. So you do have to relax into that in a way that's very different.
Yeah, but as much as that's the weakness, it is also the strength, I think, because it teaches something about connection and feel and timing
that you would
more
give
than
others.
Yeah.
more than any other approach to horsemanship.
So I had one more question. I don't know if we're in time limit from what you guys do at the podcast, but this is a conversation and we're just people talking. If you, and again, you can't speak for everyone, but if you take the godfathers and godmothers of Icelandic horsemanship and you say, I want to make liberty a part of Icelandic horsemanship, how would you structure it in a way that fits the culture? Because you guys are already doing it in what you do, but you are, again, I don't, you say it's not taught, but let's say you want to introduce it in the curriculum, because I think that's one part of things that at Liberty that I'm missing, that Avery helps me with, is providing structure and details into the Liberty so that the average person can do it.
Yeah.
How would you say that? And again, you're not gonna speak for everyone in the Icelandic community, but in your mind, how would you introduce the the freedom and the boundaries and that liberty brings into what you already do traditionally?
We've kind of talked about how liberty has at least influenced your approach, like training a horse from start to finish.
I do think that once you start training Liberty, you will never view training the same again. Like, I think it's perspective shifting and it permeates everything you do,
Mhm.
even in life to a degree. Like, it just shifts so many ways of how you think about horses process their emotions and how you process your emotions. So, I think it's a lens through which even some small experiences in it change how you train.
Yeah.
I mean, the odd part is we just came from a trek in Iceland. There is actually a very free, fun-loving forward side of Icelandic
That's what
riding.
I was thinking. Like, I was thinking I would lean into that part of the culture that already is, and like, how
Cool.
can we
Yeah.
embrace it with that emphasis?
Mm.
I think that's where it really lies. Is I think that it would incorporate tapping, and this is a little bit of a side story. But one of my dear mentors, Metta, she was one of the first people that did brideless riding nembos in Iceland. She's one of the teachers at Hólar University. She's the only woman Icelandic highest level trainer,
Mhm.
and she does all these brideless demos. And then another friend of ours, of Taromine Flossi Olafsson, did kind of fun, um, like theatrical goofs of famous riders at one point with some of his friends. And so this teacher of mine, she has long blonde hair and it's oftentimes in a braid. So he got a wig and a braid. And he got a Palomino horse because one of the horses she did the song was always Palomino. He got a random Palomino horse, something like this, went to this huge riding hall demo, and the horse, he'll have to correct me if I'm wrong in this, had never been ridden brideless. So he stuck a neck rope on it and just went in there and galloped around. No control, right? And then they, of course, opened the doors to the
No.
riding hall because everybody normally rides out. And he left. His horse just bolted out into the horse area with him. So he told me this story, and I actually think it's a really funny but also hilarious kind of aspect to Icelandic horsemanship.
Yeah.
In that the great part about Iceland, the Icelandic spirit and Icelanders, is they're very prone to doing that. Like you would tell them go bridleless, and they'll be like, okay, take off the bridle and just give it a whirl. They don't have a lot of fear in the culture of Icelandic horsemanship and riding.
Yeah.
And I think that interlocks
Yeah.
very well with the liberty mindset.
Yeah.
So I would try to build off of that somehow because I think that's there,
Yeah.
right?
You know what's funny about that? Is I view myself as a very liberty-free boundaries. And you just said, and we view Icelandic as very traditional structure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what you just said, to me, it's like, I wouldn't do that because I don't have the foundation and it's not proper horsemanship. So it just in lines that we both have the same things in our culture
Yes.
that goes just like, because I would never take off my bridle unless I have a foundation of something, not just gallop. Because that's not promoting what I think is liberty, but it's like the irony of it, right?
Yeah.
The tradition and the liberty all have very
I don't know. I'd have to call him up and ask him at this point how he got his horse stopped
Yeah.
after they opened the door and the horse galloped off into
Yeah.
the
Mm.
horse area with him. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild. That's not untypical Icelandic behavior.
Yeah, which is amazing to me because it's like that's why I find we can find some kind of common ground in all of it
Yeah.
because we're all doing something similar in which we think. So
Yeah.
thanks for answering those guys.
That was fun.
I had to ask you a couple as it was
Fun.
coming. Yes.
Let us know if we need to rephrase this because as I was reading through this question, I wasn't sure if it was clear. So tell me if it's not. You do extensive nonprofit work. And of course, that's especially with training rescue horses. What do you think are things we can do now, just as the horse industry and as horse owners, to reduce the number of horses that end up in rescue situations?
Yeah, it's a pretty complicated but very simple answer to me.
Mm.
Horses that start with a good foundation don't end up in rescue 99% of the time.
Hmm.
Meaning, most of the horses that I see through rescue have mental issues created by people. The other half or the other side is the one with physical issues, right? They get hurt. That's completely different. But most of what I see through rescue are not physical problems, it's mental problems. Things that we messed up, that we couldn't fix, that we created a big problem where nobody can handle, and then they sent them to somewhere, a sale, and those sales ended up in a kill lot. And then those kill lots ended up the rescues rehoming them. So I think a big way for number two reasons. One, don't breed unless you're going to educate your horse through
Hmm.
where they need to get.
Hmm.
Don't do it.
Hmm.
But again, breeding is a business, and I understand that. But as a breeder myself, who's bred a lot of Arabians, breeding is not something you make a lot of money in.
No.
If you're a breeder, even the biggest breeders that I've known, name the industry, thoroughbred, Arabian, quarter horse, they don't make a lot of money through breeding itself because it's a very difficult thing to do. It's very
It's an
complex
expensive thing
and
to
it's
do.
very expensive.
Yeah.
So even if you sell $100,000 horse, well, you've probably bred another 100 that were worth very little. But if you are going to take the time to breed a horse, at least see it through so it's educated. And those educated horses aren't going to end up there. But I've probably worked with, I mean, I can't even name the number of horses I've rescued. Very few have been educated even average. Most are very poorly educated. And I think those are the two things. If you're gonna breed, see the horse through, and you were talking about breeding, and a lot of times they keep their horses more wild and feral until they're 3, but then they see that education through because they have educated people. Where if here in this country, if your horse is a little feral till 3 years old, good luck because I feel like in the culture we don't promote education as much and foundation as much as we need to. And no matter what industry, the racehorse industry, I've worked with a lot of racehorses, and a lot of it's how quick can we get that horse educated on the track, but they end up with they don't know how to do the simple things like pick up their feet, lead, cross tie, tie in general. And all of the industries have that same thing. So if we are going to rescue, you're never going to end it. But if you're going to help it at most, it starts with the breeders. Don't overbreed. And if you're going to breed, see it through. And if you're seeing it through, it means educating your horses whenever you feel that is right.
And having a population of trainers that can do the education.
Correct. And that's the other hard part. And that's the part that we trying to get through. We're trying to offer affordable education for these nonprofits
Yeah.
because we can't travel around everywhere and teach all the horses. But if we can educate the people that are at these nonprofits
Yeah.
to teach a good foundation, these horses have a brighter future. And it's sad because there's only one of us, there's only one of you guys, and we can having a higher educated population is going to help change.
Teaching.
Yes.
Our final question is just a larger one about horses in society. And that is, what value do horses have for humans and also humans have for horses
Mhm.
moving forward in the world today?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this one kind of I'll sum up in a story. It's I hear all the time is that horses are here to heal people. Okay. And I agree mostly with that sentiment. But the problem is that horses that are not educated, horses that are not healed themselves, horses that fear people cannot heal people.
Hmm.
So, yes, horses are here to heal people, but people are also here to heal horses. Because if horses were wild, they are fear people. They run from people. Wild Mustangs don't just come up to people and let them get caught. They might come up for some food every once in a while, but they're prey, we're predator.
Mm.
So to me, horses are here to heal us,
Hmm.
but we are here to help heal them in the world that we live. Because the world in which we live, there's not just a horse world and a human world. Our world's so big that most horses interact with people.
Mm.
And those horses that we do, we have to show them how to live in a person world. Because then and only then can horses heal us.
Mm.
Horses cannot heal us if they're deathly afraid of us, because then their energy is not promoting a relaxing, comforting energy that we need. And most of what we do focuses on energy. And people relate to horses through energy, but most of the time we don't know how to describe energy, but horses can feel that energy instantly. So if your horse is afraid and you go into a place and they want to heal you, they can't do that because they're afraid of you.
Yeah.
And so the best horses that heal people are the ones that are most educated with people.
Yes.
When we've asked this question now to quite a few interview guests, I don't think anyone has considered like what
I would say what responsibility we have to our horses to set them up to
Yes,
be able to
to
help us.
set them up to be able to help us. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Because we don't live in a world anymore where they're tools. Yes, some communities
Mm.
have used horses as tools, but 98% of us that have horses, they're not tools anymore. They don't help us plow fields because it's inefficient. They don't help us go and get our groceries to the store. They are literally animals that we take in because we love them and we want to use them for something, and hopefully we can teach them things.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of it. Is our world has changed, our society has changed. Horses used to be tools. They used to be things that we needed to survive, but they're not that anymore. And in order for the world and horses to continue to help us heal, we have to learn how to, teach them and educate them in the world in which we live so that more people will fall in love with them.
Mm.
Coping skills.
Yes.
Yes.
Coping skills.
Yes.
To learn to cope with us.
Yes. Yes.
Us. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Patrick. This was awesome.
You're welcome.
I'm so excited to just release this out into the Icelandic horse world. I know that there are plenty of people in the Icelandic horse world that are pursuing liberty, but we have certainly created a little bubble of Icelandic horse liberty enthusiasts here in
Yes.
Kentucky, and that we have seen the the fruits of it in just our horses emotional regulation.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It has helped our horses cope with
Mhm.
being our horses in this
Yes.
world
Yeah.
in such meaningful ways.
And as we close, I got one more question for each of you. I know you love my questions. Is
Uh-oh.
when I first saw you guys, it was at the Liberty Fest in
Equine affair.
Equine Affair. Yeah.
Equine affair.
But what was it because that wanted you both to get into Liberty? Because there was a reason why you did it, and there's a reason why I'm sitting here is because you're interested in Liberty and we'd like to talk. But why are each of you before we go?
I've got to be honest. As much as I have seen many Liberty performances, just being a horse girl, I never was particularly drawn to it. I thought it was cool, but I was like, oh, those are really cool tricks somebody
Mhm.
taught their horse. And it wasn't until I tried it for myself.
Cool.
Just the challenge it was for me to be as present as you have to be and as tuned in to your horse to be able to time your release correctly and effectively, that it was like enthralling,
Mhm.
and it was addicting.
Yep.
And it was also just so cool how it was entirely like my energy and my body language,
Yep.
not my pressure through an aid or a piece of equipment that my horse was responding to.
Mhm.
That was very, very different from, I mean, from anything
Yes.
else. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
For me, I think I've told this story a couple times, but it it was an evolution of Terrell and I were always getting troubled horses in training, and we were just really discovering a limit of what we could offer those horses to help them.
Mm.
Uh, in particular, we could nearly always get them to the point where we could ride them in some capacity, in some situations, but it was very much like a patchwork of almost just coping tools and kind of
Very situational coping tools.
yeah, very situational coping tools and kind of like I don't know how to describe it. It was very dependent upon like this had to be like this and this had to be like this. And it was very frustrating because it always felt like we were hitting a wall or a limit to what we could really help clients and help horses with achieving in certain situations. And so we were very blessed because our client, Charlotte Riley, she had a horse that was very scared of whips, just terrified of whips. He would bolt with you if he heard a whip used on another horse.
Wow.
So very weird, especially because he was so sensitive. You didn't really need to use a whip with him, but he was that reactive around them. And we had tried what we would normally try, and it wasn't helping. The typical desensitization work.
Yeah, it wasn't changing. Like, yes, maybe he would learn to cope with it, but emotionally, it wasn't changing anything. for
Correct.
him.
I think that's a good way to say it. That we could sometimes get the behavior under control, but the horse's emotions were not improving that much, and a reversion was just a couple incorrect cues.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right?
exactly. Yeah.
So that Charlotte then gave us permission to just spend a year doing Liberty with him,
Dang.
and I didn't want to ruin her horse, so I saw online some cute pictures of a miniature horse with Appaloosa dots that was available for sale down the road from some friends of ours. And so I was like, Terrell, we're getting a mini for Eric, our son.
Sure. Who couldn't be less interested in horses?
We'll use him for Liberty and we'll try everything with him first because if we destroy him, it doesn't matter.
Nice. Poor Cookie.
As a trainer, you know you're going to mess things up. So better do it on a horse where, you know, where it's ours and it doesn't matter as much. So we got Cookie and he was our first real Liberty horse. And Candice was Charlotte's horse, and we trained them and then started incorporating other horses that were struggling emotionally into that training with your help and with Dan's help.
Well, and tell them about what Candice is doing now.
And now Candice is a trail horse and he's loved by his owner and he's doing great. And that has been, so getting back to the original question, that's why I do Liberty. Similar to Mackenzie, I have never been inspired to do Liberty from a showmanship aspect of the sport. Like, yeah, it's fun to show off. Oh, hey, I can do this with my horse, but it
is also just as fun to fast tolt for me.
Yeah, there's never been a motivation to do it to be able to show it off or to be able to prove something on that front. It was really just rooted in trying to make our horses more successful.
Cool.
And just what Carrie and I always talk about is watching them at Liberty, watching them at Brideless and Liberty. There is something so adorable about being able to see your horse's expressions. And it's crazy how much a bridle stands in the way of seeing your horse think. It's really cool. Yeah. So
I love how their lips like scrap on my pace mare when I ride her Brideless. Her lower lip flops. And she makes all these funny expressions with her ears. And it is the most adorable thing. And when you get multiple horses bridleless going together, it's amazing. You see a whole other side. Yes, I think that's a really fun part of
it is. Yeah.
Thank y'all for sharing that with me. I was very curious, and I'm sure people here would love to know, but thank y'all.
Yeah, that was fun.
Thank you. And
Thank you for listening to the Fifth Gait Podcast. I know you've heard this on other channels, but it really is so important that you like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening through, or all of them for that matter. We would also love to hear from you on social media, so please send us ideas, suggestions. Let us know what you're enjoying right now so we can continue to make content you want to watch and hear. Thank you again for your support, and we will see you next time on the next episode of the Fifth Gait Podcast.